My company has been doing web, mobile, apps, on-location interactive experience, games and so on since 2005. And we have created a lot, both on the practical level with actual productions, but also a lot of design and project management and quality assurance and so on for other companies. I myself master of media science and have specialized in why do the users do as they do and why should they care. If you ever are in doubt of what you should focus on, then there's only one thing to say: it's the users, stupid. It's not the story, that's your focus. It's the users who in the end will gonna get your content, so they should be the first thing you think about. Because we are not doing art only. We are also sometimes doing art, but we are doing content for people, mostly. So, why should we do transmedia? Well, we can do it, but why should we do it? Hopefully it is because it gives our users something. Well, what does it do? Why should we do it personally? Why do I do it? Well, I don't know if anybody knows what that picture is from. Walking Dead, exactly. That's a comic, which is now an international worldwide brand. It's really big. A lot of money in that. That's from a comic. It started with a comic, then it was a website, then it won a lot of awards, then it became a game, then it became a TV show, another game, there's gonna be a movie soon, I guess, there are books and so on and so on. This is why we do transmedia, because by creating an IP from the bottom up, we can create really big projects, really big products, we can earn a lot of money, we can do a lot of art, we can do a lot of stories that people care about. So I mean, wouldn't it be lovely if we one day could have a product that we have started, which had all these aspects, and where it were almost all of it quality, high quality. I mean, Walking Dead is almost a story of only quality. That would be awesome. My company have gotten some successes under the belt. Not that big, of course, but something we were proud of. This is one of the first where I also really think it makes sense with I'm just concentrating. Where it really makes sense with this whole cross media.
But she looks beautiful. And so it's just incredible, and everybody comes back, and then they start to realize something that's going to happen later. And as you'll see tonight, and the next night, and the next night, on a continuing basis throughout the show, and now, you'll see the planet as we see. It's beautiful. And so it's just incredible, and everybody comes back, and then they start to realize something that's going to happen later. And as you'll see tonight, and the next night, and the next night, on a continuing basis throughout the show, and now, you'll see the planet as we see.
I have preloaded the video, but in low quality, and the web connection is a bit slow. But let's see if we're not.
But she looks beautiful, and so it's just incredible. And everybody comes back, and then they start.
I'm not that lucky today. I'm just going to talk quickly about it while it catches here. I'm just going to. This is basically a project we did for the COP15 summit, where there was a lot of events going on at the big place in Copenhagen, the big central square. And they needed something where users could interact and tell the story to the politicians that they cared and that they really wanted something be done for the environment. They really wanted a deal being made so something could be done. So we had to do this project, which was about letting people be heard. But we couldn't really let people be heard because this was a really public thing. We couldn't let people write to this big globe. We couldn't let them show their face and so on, because then what if they said fuck on the middle of the central square? I mean, so this was all about engaging people and having something really beautiful to look at, but still making a really tight and fast interaction that people could involve with really
realize something's going to happen later. And as you'll see tonight, and the next night, and the next night, on a continuing basis throughout the show and now, you'll see the planet as we see it from space. And you'll see that we're all just a small part of it. And when you look at it, you're going to recognize where you are, where your country is, where your city is. But you're going to see everybody around you is going to impact what you do. You'll see clouds drifting by and around the planet Earth. And it makes it, those clouds come your way, and you're part of it. And it spins around and you're back where you started. We're all here together, and we're all going to impact each other. And hopefully the people we see logging on say, we are together here on planet Earth. Let's come together, do something. Let's do it now.
So basically, this was all about uniting people and letting them feel they could be there without being there. But it was also very much a case of having something beautiful to look at. And it worked very well. 10 million hits in 2 weeks. People logging in on their mobile phone or on the internet and putting their pin on the map. I'm from this place in the world, and I want to say that you have to get an agreement done. You have to do something, politicians. And it was on the international newspapers and television every day because it were really nice to look at. This was where we really saw it made sense to do these kind of cross-platform, multimedia, transmedia productions, where you go, where you have a physical thing, you have a web presence, you have mobile interaction, you have TV, and so on. So my question is, why are you doing it? Is there anybody here from the film and television business? Anybody? Raise your hands. Who are from the film and television? Only one hand? There has to be more. There's someone here. I'll take this one here. So let me ask you, why are you thinking about doing transmedia at all?
No, I'm not thinking about it.
Okay. Why are you not thinking about it?
I don't think it works.
You don't think it works. That's a very, very good point. Because why use it if it doesn't work? There are a lot here who think it works. But the whole point is, if it doesn't work, we shouldn't do it. Because a lot of you are storytellers, and you have a message, and you want to change something. If it doesn't send out your message, if it doesn't change something, there's no reason doing it at all. This is the same for advertising business and for a lot of other different genres and branches. But you have like also art message, some of you, or a message about building a better world, or a message about awareness of aspects and so on. So, my question is, if we should use this to make a difference, and if we should do it right, then what do we have to be afraid of? What do we have to be really careful about? Well, we have to be careful not failing. And in traditional TV and cinema and broadcast and webisodes and whatever, how many fails does it take to fail? Has any of you experienced that there was a good project, a good movie, a good broadcast, a good something, but it had some errors and it was enough to make it drastically fail? With the audience. Yeah? How many fails were enough for it to fail?
Well, it goes down.
Oh, that's...
How I Met Your Mother, this TV series, which started really good, and then it just started getting bad and bad, and it just didn't become. Well, it started as friends, kind of. It was real, and now they're just taken away from the reality. If that makes any sense.
As soon as it lost the contact to reality, it started failing.
Yeah, for me.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I mean, one general change in the script is enough to make a TV series fail. Has any of you made a first product which were good? The first ever TV series you did, the first ever webisode, the first ever short movie, which were basically good and had no errors in it, no fails in it. Anyone? I mean, all the stuff I've done when I began to do games and websites and so on, it was full of errors in it. The problem is with this whole area of transmedia, it is as easy to fail with transmedia as it is to fail with broadcast and cinema. Which also means we have to be very precise with what we're doing. If we want to do it all, we do nothing. One of the most typical fails we do when doing transmedia is we don't know what we want. You can't do 3 different things when you're doing transmedia. It's either you can generate hype, you can generate awareness, or you can generate understanding of the topic. Which is the same as you can brand whatever it is you're trying to sell. You can hype or brand a movie to increase ticket sales. You can increase the number of people who have heard about your message, have heard your message. That is a penetration of the awareness of the message. Or you can make an understanding. You have very few people who really understand it. If we, for example, take the example with the Post-it Notes project, it was impressive that 4,000 people called in to this girl. But it was the PR stories about it that really made the difference. So that was a typical project where it was about the branding. The same with the Globe. It was mostly a branding project. An understanding project is, for example, doing a geocaching game where you have a very little audience group or a very little audience group who really get into the content. Then you don't measure on eyeballs, then you don't measure on many thousands, then you measure on how much of exposure did you do, how much of an effect did you do amongst your audience. But if you both want high numbers and really long exposure time, then you will make nothing, then you will make bad product. So basically you have to focus on one thing. You have to design to be able to do that thing on the platform that you choose, and you have to plan your distribution really well, because nobody has too many users. Nobody. If anybody says it was okay we didn't have that many users, they're lying. They're trying to hide that they're ashamed that they failed in getting enough users. But 500 users can be many for a project which has an exposure time of many hours. If you have 500 users for 100 hours each, then that's good. If you have 5 million users for 1 minute each, then that's also good. So the first group, focus, do one thing really well. Oops. Sorry, that was some Danish. The problem with focus is today you can do everything. You can do a Facebook app which looks where people are in the world where they sign in and then they can write to each other. Or you can do a geolocation app with content in the landscape and you can talk to each other. Or you can do QR codes and get content on a map, or augmented reality, 3D graphics in space. Or you can do Google Street Maps, first-person shooter games in the browser. Or you can do 3D universes with multiplayer, blah, 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 blah. You can do anything. The usual recipe we have is, okay, we make something cinema broadcast-ish, we want to have users, so we make a community and a Facebook group and a mobile game and a Facebook game and an event and and have blah, blah, blah. We don't have money enough to do it all, but we want all the user involvement and we want it all, and it fails. What if we pick 2? We pick our main revenue gathering project, for example, a cinema showing, and we pick one thing which promotes it, or one thing which prolongs the life of the message after people have watched it in the cinema. That's it. Focus. So, because all these years since we started doing all this internet and so on, everybody have had a fad that they wanted to do. 2006, everybody should have a community, then it was blogs, then we should have something on mobile, then we should have something on Facebook, then we should have a location-based game, then we should have augmented reality, so on, so on, so on. There was a project made in 2011. They thought they should make a game and a Facebook group and a movie and some live events and so on. They never got the money for it all. But they made one thing on Facebook, which was International Granny Day, where everybody could post a story about their favorite granny and what that granny had done for them. They got a lot of stories, they got a lot of images, they made a roadshow with an exhibition moving from town to town, showing all the grannies in the world and all the good they had done. Maybe that was good enough. If their story was about grannies, and they succeeded with this roadshow, with this living exhibition, why do anything else? If their story is about their grannies and they have succeeded in telling their story, then there's no reason to use more platforms. So it's all about awareness. It's not about doing something on mobile or doing something about web or doing something on Facebook and so on. It's all about simply getting your message out there. There's one project called the Johnny Cash Project. Some of you have probably heard about it. And I really love it because it is so focused. And just to see if I can find my browser here. There we go. Here we go. Basically, it's a website. You get in on the website and you can click 3 buttons. That's easy. Let's try watching the video. This is a case of user-generated content where it works. Yes, play the video. Okay, we have a little loading issue here. I'm just gonna pause it while I explain what it's about. Basically, Johnny Cash was dead. They wanted to do something for making people remember him and like a memorial for him. So they said we can do a website, we can do a game, we can do a music video, we can do all kinds of shit. But then some wise guy said, why don't we do a music video where the users can draw themselves? For this music video, we just put up some images they can see as reference images, and then everybody can draw their own version or help with drawing a video for him because they would like to honor his memory. So they made a virtual memorial for him, honoring him.
There ain't no grave can hold my body down.
And so on and so on. Anyway, this is a very strong product. This is a very used product. I can't remember if it's many million views and many 100,000 drawings or something like that. And a lot of user-generated content, a lot of hits. All because they made one thing. Very simple, very tight, nothing else. Focus, focus, focus. I haven't seen anything like this since then, and this was early project. So, strong concept, tight experience, one thing, one platform, succeed in that. Google and the World Brain is an app we're doing, inspired by that. It is for a documentary film about the scanning of all books in the world. And we are thinking a bit the same. It's a very short experience, a couple of minutes for a user one time. Not very deep, but very easy to get into, very easy to communicate to others, very easy to share with your friends. So we are not looking at a long exposure time, we're not looking at a long experience, we're looking at a tight, fun thing to create awareness about this documentary. It is meant for before the documentary is viewed. And then you go and see the documentary, and then that's it. We have quite a loading I don't think we'll be able to load it with this internet connection. Maybe we'll just give it a second here.
Greetings. I am the World Brain.
So this is basically an odd experience. You're taken into an odd flow, you don't know what happens. You have to answer some questions. Is that me? Yes, that is actually me. That's the problem with Facebook. And then you get taken through some steps and it reveals stuff about you and it's kind of odd and strange and you think, what the fuck is this? When
To get to know you a bit better, I've had a look at what you've been posting.
We won't dive into it. That was a fun coincidence. But the point is that we could have done a lot of different stuff here. We choose one thing, and then we did a little project, which was good to get awareness, and then that's it. Then we can do another one if it succeeds for the experience after the movie. Once we did something similar like that. We did a mobile phone game for sexual education in the schools. It's some years ago when the old phones were there. Basically we thought, what are they doing in the classroom? They are sending messages around about, do you want to kiss and so on, do you want to make out, do you want to do more dirty stuff? So we made a game where you could invite people to play, to kiss and to do the whole dirty stuff. But if you didn't use a condom, you could get AIDS and die. Very simple game, piggybacking on top of the existing social structures in the class. Great success. So it was role play and it was learning at the same time, but we really hit the learning. The first week it was launched in Denmark, it got 5,000 downloads, that's a lot for Denmark. People used it in Orange about 1.5 hours. There we have not that many users, but very deep understanding of the subject. 40 multiplayer sessions, 40 invitations that were sent around. So you sent in Orange 40 invitations, you got 40 invitations. You did a lot with your friends playing this game. And the guys who we did it for got a lot of statistics on what the young people did and how much they knew about sexual diseases and so on. So we thought, well, that goes well. Let's do something like that again. So we did a lot of games exactly like that. We thought, okay, multiplayer games on the mobile phone like that. Let's do it with classic board games. We have the 4 tic-tac-toe, Connect 4, some skins of existing games and so on. Well, it failed miserably because we didn't have a classroom to push the multiplayer in. There wasn't 2 guys sitting beside each other being told you can download this game to learn about sex. So the first the guy downloaded the game, then he had nobody to play with, then he deleted it again. So you can't just copy your recipe, which also means you can't copy your recipe from what you know from television or cinema. Storytelling is a universal skill if you tell as a universe, but not the script writing is not universal. Not that the actual storyboard is not universal. We have just completed a children's game called IP, which is launched together with a book and a website and animation series and so on. There was some books already, and then it had to be expanded to the virtual interactive universe. So this is something you can't see because of the projector, but maybe you can just slightly see what it is. Can anybody see what it is, maybe? Storyboard? It's a storyboard. It's a storyboard for what? What? Website? It's a storyboard for a website. It could be that, like an animation storyboard. Well, I'm afraid it wasn't. There's a close-up of some of these. It was a storyboard for game. Can we make a game from such a storyboard? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah, of course we can. Of course we can. We can make a storyboard for such a game. Okay, let me go on. What in the world is this? Anybody? Apart from Battle Yard? It's a Bible? It's a game Bible, yeah. It is what we also call a concept or design document for a game. So, can we make an animation series from this document? Yes? How? Use imagination. Ah, clever guy. So, back to the other one. I'm just gonna, I'm confused. Yeah, in my own, I'm just gonna scroll back here. The whole point is, this is a storyboard for a game. But if we had to use our imagination for creating an animation series from a game storyboard, then we also have to use our imagination for creating a game from an animation storyboard. Because if you take an animation storyboard and do a game exactly like that, then it's going to be either a very bad game or a very expensive game to make. So if you come as a scriptwriter or as a storyboarder for an animation series and say, this is the game you're going to do, this is the website you're going to do, this is the interactive app you're going to do, here's the storyboard, then either you have to give freedom to the guys doing it, or you will get a bad product. If I were to say to an animation guy, do an animation series exactly like that, then they would, I don't know what they would do, but it wouldn't be good. So I would never say to somebody with cinematic skills, here's how you should do your movie. I might say, this is the IP which the movie is going to be about, but I wouldn't say how they would do it because I'm suck at doing TV and cinema and animation and so on. So it is very much this again. I'm a game guy. If I try to put on my game hat when I look at animation and TV and cinema, it's going to be bad. The same way, if you're very experienced into movies and animation, you have to open up and give some freedom to the experts in that area, or else you're going to impose a certain viewing angle on the product, and it's not going to be that good. We got that, we made a very fine little game, but it got much more expensive than it could be, but it ended up very, very fine in the end. I'm just going to show you a quick snippet from it.
This is a dog called Ib, and goes outside to make tracks with his tractor. Suddenly, 3 rats appear. "Where are you going?" asks one of the rats. "Out to make tractor tracks," answers Ib. Ib does not like the rat.
The kids were very fond of that game.
Hej, Grævling. Jeg vil du skal sove.
Du skal nok få.
So we ended up in getting a really good product in the end, but we had to work a lot on this, where does the animation studio stop and where does the game start and the other interactive aspects, and we had to work a lot on expectations, who are deciding what, to make sure that the person who knew about the interactive did that, and the person viewing about the animation series does that, and so on. I will go quickly past that because I'm very slow today, or fittingly slow. Because when we're looking at our whole universe script or our story and our platforms, it's very important that we remember they're very different. A lot of people today have said, do for the platform. Do the story for the platform, not take the same story and put it on different platforms. Because all the different platforms can do different stuff. The cinema is great for the whole intimacy and the whole spectacle. The TV is very good at the emotion. Well, in the older days when there was smaller screens, today you can't do action on television, but we have to also learn to start doing that. The internet is very good for information, but it's very cold. The mobile phone is very good for like this whole very close personal thing. Facebook also used to be a close personal thing, and now it's more like a spam information thing. And games are more in the spectacle area. It's very hard to communicate emotion with games. We have a saying that it's, in movies, it's very cheap to have a guy go and pick up a thing and then give to a girl and then smile. In games, it's very cheap to do an explosion which levels a city. But if you like reverse it, it gets very hard. In games, it's very hard to have a guy give a girl a flower and she smiles and he smiles. And in cinema, it's very expensive to level a city. So you really have to think about what part of your story you put where. You can even do live events. For example, in the IP game project, the book should be the carrier of emotion and character. The game should be about adventure and action. And the TV animation series should be about the characters and the action. And the webpage should be about info and trailer and all the other stuff. For example, that's one way of doing it. There's one project which did it really well, I think. It was a project called Crime Will. It's an iPad game, iPhone game, online universe on web, trading cards, TV animation series, and so on. A really big project. And what they did really well was they said that all the content is different on the different platforms, but the same overall story carries over. Get on with it.
Everything is peaceful. Just as long as you don't have a sense of humor. And don't pull any pranks. But if you just can't help it, you're confined as a criminal and sent off to an island.
What? It wasn't me. It was Merle Gray, the tea shop owner. He wanted to ruin my act.
No. Dara did this. This is a crazy stunt, and we all know she's crazy. She draws nonsensical math problems in the dirt all the time.
I'm not drawing math problems in the dirt. I'm, digging for dragon eggs.
See?
Coming fans, what do you do, Diggs?
Well, Chasey, I dig up the evidence and present 3 suspects. For example, why is Terrell Rash drawing math problems in the dirt?
To find a cure for it.
So basically we have a whole universe story about all these crooks, these people who make bad things, not really dangerous things, just, you know, naughty things. They get sent to an island and do a lot of naughty things. And then these two persons, Diggs and Chasey, are trying to investigate who are doing what and trying to like be the police force on the island. And this story is then communicated in a TV series, trading card, online web universe, iPad, iPhone game, and so on and so on. But different gameplay, different stories, different experience on each platform. That is totally after the book. Really beautifully made, a bit expensive, a bit big maybe. They also made an iPhone game. This is where we know so much about the project because we did the game. Augmented reality, location-based scavenger hunt-ish. You run around, find evidence, try to solve a crime, and so on. Again, a bit different from the other experiences, but it fits with the platform and so on. And the whole point was that the game earned some revenue, but we're also pushing users to the web. And the web earned some revenue, but we're also pushing users to the iPad game, and the TV series were the ones who generated the least money, but pushed people over to all the interactive stuff. Because TV is the best promoter of IP ever. So, right out of the book, really good project. They just had a little challenge. They started with they wanted to sell the trading cards game at the Toy Stories. That was the main revenue. And then they didn't get accepted at the Toy Story because before they were a recognized brand. So they did this online universe, iPad games, iPhone games, planning the TV animation series, and then they ran out of money. All the trading card game are in a storage right now. Wasted money. If they had started smaller, saying we do one thing, we do it really good, we complete that, then we try to get these trading cards in the store, then we build slowly. They try to do the whole rollout at once. They are still surviving, they're still doing okay. They might even make money one day, but that was maybe trying too many things at once, even though they did each thing right. So again, start with focus on one thing. Then there's a third rule, distribution and order of release. As I said earlier, if you think you got too many users, then you're lying or stupid. And that is the only thing I'm really not totally agree with one of the first speakers about publishers and distributors. Today, where there are so much content and so many platforms, it is so hard to reach them. So any help you can get, if it costs you money, so be it. I would rather have a publisher on my game and give them some of my money than I would try to push it myself. Until I got the first big success, then my name can push it virally. But to begin with, I'm totally in the dark unless somebody hears about my project. And where, was one guy asking early on, he's not here anymore, where do you push it to users? Where are they? Well, luckily somebody said that. Somebody drew a map of where they are. Basically, if we see the big map here, Facebook is the most dominant part. Then there is some online games, some MMO games, Twitter, Skype, YouTube, and so on. Facebook is the dominant one. But Facebook is just a little tiny speck in email and SMS, which is a little tiny speck in spoken language. Word of mouth is still the most powerful recommendation today. But using Facebook as a communication device for word of mouth is okay still. So the whole point is you don't get more users by putting stuff on the internet, by putting stuff on Facebook, by putting stuff on App Store, by putting stuff on the web page. But it gives you some touch points which allows you to transfer people between stuff. For example, classic. You have a TV trailer of something, of a movie coming up. They see this TV trailer, then nothing happens until the movie comes up. On the TV trailer, there could be a link to a Facebook group. There are today often. Or there could be an app you can download. On that Facebook group, in that app, there's content that will prolong the exposure to the product. So I will keep remembering that the movie is going to be in the cinema at this date. And it can give you media coverage. If you have an app which are really strange, you can get PR. If you have a campaign about yellow post-it notes where something is written, it can give you PR. If you have an app where you can interact with this guy who you don't know who are, Will, what was his name? And that is a funky app, you can get PR using that. If you do an augmented reality thing which are really good looking, you can get PR. So it doesn't really give you more users, but it's a chance of getting a touch point to a user. So you have the touch point. This is the actual case. There was a milk campaign in Denmark. A company made an app for the milk campaign about cows on the farm. Ecological cows, that it was better that they were not fed with medicine and so on. And they forgot the 65 rules. Which means every time somebody has to do something, 60% do it. If I have to click somewhere, 60% will do it. 40% will not. Each click you have removes some of your users. If I have to do something hard like signing up, 5% will do it. Unless it's Facebook sign up, then it's higher that number. If I had to create an account, 5% would do it. If I have to pay, 5% would do it. So if I had to click to get somewhere, then sign up, then pay, and there were 1,000 people doing it, then it would be 630, and 5 people would pay. 1,005. That's kind of a high drop-off rate of users you have here. These guys, they made an app about cows. You download it by scanning a QR code on the milk carton. Then when you scan it, you open up a program, and then it said, do you want to download all the content? Oh yes. It downloaded all the content. Then when I had downloaded the content, it said, okay, now you have to go to one of the farms and scan a QR code to see the content. What? I just download an app and download content and I can't see any content. No, you have to drive to a farm and scan a QR code. But wait, aren't you interested in me seeing the content? No, you have to drive to the farm. Yeah, you guess how many people did that? 5%. 200,000 people read this carton, roughly. Then 5% downloaded it because that was a hard thing to do. That is 10,000 people, then 5% drove somewhere and scanned something. That's 500 people. There were around 10 different locations you could scan. Nobody scanned more than one thing. That was a lot of wasted content. And a lot of wasted expensive advertising space on the milk carton. If instead it was an app that you could download on the milk carton and then you could see a lot of content about how it was good to be ecological and drink good cow milk and so on, then that would be good. But it wasn't. So this penetration thing generally is pretty hard. We once did a campaign on the milk buttons at festivals, on water buttons at festivals, like this one. There was an advertisement for a game. And this game was an advertisement for online community. And we did another thing like that, which in a Donald Duck magazine, there was an advertisement for a game which we're promoting a new book series. And finally, we also did a Donald Duck game where the promotion was for the Donald Duck game in the Donald Duck magazine. 3 different cases where you have some kind of print somewhere saying download an app and try this content. And now I want to ask you, how many percent downloaded in these 3 cases? And I will pick a total random one who's hiding. Hello. How many do you think downloaded in the 3 cases, percentage-wise?
It's hard to tell, sorry, I was looking this up.
Okay, no problem. We'll take another one. Any volunteers? 50% of which of these?
Hard to say exactly, but I think a QR code is useful as much as on any print, maybe.
Sorry, say again?
I think QR code can be useful and clickable and scannable almost on every print.
Yeah, but can you guess how many people downloaded on the first one and the second one and the third one?
I don't know area.
Okay, no problem. Anybody has like an idea of how many percentage people do this? I mean, just a guess, it's 60% of which of these 3? 60, yeah? And the second was 5%, and the third one? And the third one was 5. Okay, let's get back to the fantastic example with the yellow post-it notes. The yellow post-it notes said it was handwritten, so I called. A third of the guys called, was something like that? A third of the guys, persons called with the hand notes, like 30%?
It was 13%.
13%, okay, 13%. They called because it was a personal message. Now comes the numbers, and they are pretty scary. In the first example, it should be in theory high because it's a bottle, which says, hi, I'm a bottle with a game on. It was around 2% who downloaded. The second should be pretty low because it's a magazine with an advertisement in it. So that means it's not very personal message. 1% downloaded. The third one is also advertisement. It's like, try my game, and then it's like on this cardboard thing here at the front. But it is Donald Duck who says, try my game. So 50% downloaded. Donald Duck says on his Donald Duck magazine, download my game. That's like the yellow post-it notes. On the first one, it is the bottle who says, download me, I vouch for this game, but we don't know the bottle, it's an unknown brand. In the second one, it's just advertisement, it's just spam. So, it's really all a matter of who are saying it to you and when, whether you want to react on it or not. A very good other example is this project called Mergen, a lovely project which in the early phases had some problems with their order of stuff. We were coaching them on what they should do with the transmedia, and they showed us what the project was about, and then they said, and then the transmedia is about signing your name on a tree. And we were like, what? Why should I sign my name on a tree? To support the tree. But I was like, but why would I do that? I don't care about the tree, I don't love the tree. Then they said, oh no. It is actually about some people who live on the sea and build their boats of this tree and who dive a lot and so on. And then I was like, yeah, and what are you then using the tree for? Yeah, we are using the tree to promote the movie about these people who are dependent on the tree. So you promote a movie by asking people to sign for something they don't know why they should sign for. That's a problem. But then all of a sudden, oops, now I'm seeing if I can find my browser. They made a very beautiful tree. I mean, and then you can sign your name and your name gets in and it's 3D animated and effects and all that. Very beautiful tree. But then they understood that people would sign the tree when they have seen the documentary and cared about the people, then they would sign the tree. So this was a perfect call of action while their emotional peak were just after they'd seen the documentary. But it wasn't the first touch point. This would not bring people to pay a ticket. So instead, they made a very nice homepage with some apps which were free and which promoted the documentary and which promoted the website. And then on the website you could sign on this tree when you cared. And they made a very nice documentary and a trailer which teased about this whole project. But the tree were not the promotion part. And so on and so on. Very beautiful project. They just got the order of the release order of the different elements. They just reversed it kind of, and then they fixed it. The only problem was they had used a lot of money in that tree because they got an advertisement agency to do it, and we know advertisement agencies. Don't go there. It's very expensive, but a very nice tree. Anyway. So what about this Facebook thingy? Can we push people through Facebook? Well, we saw that Facebook was a dominant thing on the web. Well, it most certainly is. This is a project. Everybody in this project, and there are at least 10, 15 people who have been making the animation series, the game, the books, and so on, they have been spamming their friends. That has given us around, I think it was 7,000 people who have signed up on the group and 330 likes. That's okay, I guess. It is in Denmark alone, yes, a little country and so on, but still not impressive. But 7,000 people are a bit interested and 400 will get a message when we say the app is launched. Well, let's see another project. 2 persons have launched the trailer and not that much else, haven't spammed with that much, 8,000 likes. 50 or 70,000 people have joined the group. Why on earth? Anybody? Why has this Facebook group spread virally? Where the other one about the kids game didn't? Anybody?
They had the lottery.
Good point. To win something is always a good driving factor, but they didn't. Anybody else? Kids are not allowed on Facebook. Kids don't use Facebook. Good point. That's one of the reasons, but then it would be the parents who, but yeah, it's partly right. The very important thing here is the story. UFO stories are hardcore niche group, but international hardcore niche group. So there are people really interested in UFOs all over the world. They will spread this when they hear about it. A children's game, well, there are a lot of children's games. And the people, as you said, the people who are reading about the children's games group are the parents who are only partly interested in the children's game. So Facebook is good for the thing which people really interested in, like their friends drinking, sex, and hobbies. But it's not so good for mainstream thing. I mean, a car commercial won't be spread virally on Facebook. But to end on a high level, on a positive note, it is possible to get a shitload of users. We saw it on the globe. We have made a lot of mobile games and websites and interactive stuff, which got a lot of users. One of the projects was Nither Detector. It was like a little game launched together with a Christmas calendar TV series. 10,000 downloads in 20 days. Very good, but it was pushed by television. Television is strong. Snickers Peanut Power Race! Advertising game for Snickers, of course. 35,000 downloads the first time it ran, roughly the same the second time. 3/4 of an hour gameplay time, a lot of exposure to the users. The advertisement agency loved this game because it was only 35,000 users, but to be able to promote the Snickers brand to a person 3/4 of an hour while he's playing this game, that is strong. That's much better than 30 seconds in a TV commercial where you're doing other stuff anyway. We know that people are looking at the screen when they're playing the game. As mentioned, the Donald Duck game, 50% downloaded it. There were 200,000 magazines in Scandinavia of Donald Duck, 100,000 downloads. That was the record at that time for games, for mobile phone games in Scandinavia. We set the record, since of course, Angry Birds have beaten that record. Fair enough. 35 minutes of usage. It would be much more expensive. So here it makes sense to do these cross-media because you can get a lot of exposure time. So if we should sum it up, and I know I've talked a lot about marketing and it's a bit dry and so on, but it is a reality. Some of your money will come from marketing or partnership, some of it will come from cultural funds. What you really have to think about when you're doing these things is that you have to choose what you do. And then you do that first of all. Then you can do a lot of other stuff afterwards, but think of one thing you do. Then you have to take your universe and then put that universe on that one thing you do. Don't take the story you already have for like a cinema and put it on an app, for example. And then finally you have to start with a little project, because this is, most of you, it's the first time you're doing cross-media and transmedia, so you're not experts, and you have to team up with people who have tried it before. If not, you will make some basic errors which will make you fail, and that would be a shame. So you have to start small and slowly learn this. And then you, for God's sake, don't try to be on all platforms at once. You just can't do it, and you don't have the muscle and the money for it anyway. I think I have a couple of minutes left, so I would ask if there were any questions. And I already put up some topics, for example, what people can ask about. I have a lot of numbers in my head, I can say. A lot of people have been asked what cost it, what does it do. But you can also ask for other stuff. So, anybody?
I believe there are many questions to be asked, but we only have time for a few maybe, so maybe there are some great questions around here? No magic recipes?
That was one there.
Now, I know you'll work with you, but you were pretty kind of sure about the fall-off rate, that 60% do it, 5% do it, 5% do it. What do you base that on?
Well, that is orange. In general, these numbers vary depending on the project and how you do it and so on. But I mean, it's roughly around there. It's a bit the same with apps. Like, for example, if you get somebody to download an app, then between 5 to 10% upgraded to a paid version, for example. Or if you're talking websites where you have to sign up, then it's roughly 10 to 20% who do it. Sometimes it's 5%. It depends a bit on the content and so on. So these numbers are not set in stone. My point is just that if you remember that every time people have to do something hard, then a lot of them will disappear. And every time they have to do something which is easy, there are still a few of them who will not do it. So you really have to think about making it as easy as possible. And that's also why when you're doing, for example, alternate reality games where you have to like solve a puzzle to go on or communicate with others or go somewhere to get content and so on, you can do it if you have a hardcore user base who are really willing to invest that time in your content. But if you have a casual user base, then they will just disappear. So you really have to think about when you are setting the barrier of entry high and when you set it low.
Just to comment on that, actually there are statistics that prove as well that, for example, Facebook Connect, people are more keen to connect with Facebook than to browse anonymously because they know that they might have, in the end, a personal experience. So you see that the fact that this is changing. The fact that one click more is usually bad, but sometimes if you justify this click in the right way, then you can have people make not one, not two, but maybe 100 clicks. I mean, when we worked on the Spiral, it was one of the points of the game was to click on the map, and you had to earn those clicks, and we added value to all those penetration inside the website. And because it was scripted in the right way, people, they fought to earn those clicks. And then you see the more barrier we were putting and the more it was working. So, I mean, I'm not sure you could be general about the penetration. This is, of course, it's true for advertisement when on a website when you are not telling a story, but story-wise.
We also see it on websites with interactive content, but it's true, if you generate a universe about exclusivity and about you being a member of a secret society, then you can get people to much more. If you narratively lure people into the experience, like for example the ABBA dancing experience, normally you would have a very high drop-off rate of people filming themselves by dancing ABBA. But if you smooth it in, so to speak, then you can get a lot of people to do it. Then you might even have more people doing it than you normally would if it was not hard. That didn't make sense. Anyway, the point is you can do a lot with narratives, and you can trap people to do something which they wouldn't do normally. But you just really have to be aware of doing it if you have something where people would normally stop seeing your content. Also, for example, there are a lot of special cases, and that's also why I can't say what to do. For example, everybody said in the old days you have to tell people things around noon when they have their lunch break, because then they're on the internet. Yeah, they're on the website. But when they're doing mobile games, they're downloading them in the afternoon and playing them in the evening, after they have eaten. But they're on Facebook just before they eat. So it's like, it's really difficult. And that's also why you can't do it alone. You have to team up with somebody who has some experience on the kind of product you're making on an interactive platform. Because else you will fail. I mean, we fail sometimes, and we are very experienced, so everybody can fail in this field.
Okay, so thanks to our presenter.